just a good old boy.
Well, never mind this thing. It's a old deer blind I'm about to fix. I thought I was gonna crush the thing and burn it, but we are gonna do the review everybody's been waiting on the Massey Ferguson RB 4160V. Now this is the first generation version that Massey had right after they made the Lily acquisition. This baler is basically the same as the Lily was, and I love this baler. There is a few things though that I think they need to improve on and change. Now given that, I do love this baler. It's been very good so far. We're right around 5,000 or so rolls in that ballpark area through it at this point. I haven't baled as much round rolls as I usually do. Our market's changed a little bit. We've went more to doing small squares since we've gotten it, or it had more hay on it. And we are still using our old baler, if anybody that follows the channel is wondering. But so I'm gonna go over some of the stuff that I dislike about it, because that's really what the review's about. I did an overview of all the reasons why we bought this machine, and I will touch on some of those while we're looking at this and going over it. And I'm talking about this unit in particular. They have got different newer versions of this out now where they've changed the net system a little bit and a few other things since this one's came out, and fixed some of the issues that I have. But I'm solely talking about this unit, which this is the original. This baler is actually also the same thing as a 504 Pro Vermeer, which well, I won't get into that, but if y'all want to know what I think about the newest 504 Pro Vermeer and my thoughts of it compared to this baler, and if they're the same still or not, leave it in the comments and I'll make another video on that. I'm gonna take up too much time going over all this other stuff. So we'll start at the front of the baler. As far as the front goes and getting up and down and everything, I love it. There's no complaints. I really love the 2-speed jack that comes on these to give you a little faster up and down. You just pull the handle out, and I think one way, it's the only thing that's a little bit annoying about this is, you see I'm going down counterclockwise, and if I change into lower speed to go down, I have to turn it clockwise, so it does reverse when you change the speed on the jack. That is a little bit of annoying nuisance, but it's nothing that really matters. I mean, it's just a little bit of a nuisance. It can confuse you some days. The biggest complaint I have, well, I'm gonna try to mix in the good stuff too, because I don't want this to seem like I don't like the baler, because I love this baler. I love the pickup on these. They're very heavy built, camless design. It feeds hay great. This has got the knife option in this baler, the 17 knives. I really like the knives. I did not think I would ever use those when we bought it, because this was the only way you could get this baler at that time, was with the knife option in it. I don't know for sure, but I think they are offering it now without it if you order it that way. But I'm not 100% certain on that, so don't take my word for it. But I think it may be an option now in the latest models. It has the drop floor. The knives on this baler, you can choose from 8, 9, or 17. You can change to, or no knives. You can change all that from the cab, from the computer. It is controlled through a solenoid bank over here on this side, right here. So you basically take one valve, which this tractor only has two remote valves, or 2 sets of remote valves right here. So these 2 lines here are what run your pickup and your knife tray, the drop tray, trying to think, the drop floor, or yeah, the drop on the knives, the drop on the floor, and the pickup, all run off this one set. This is the tailgate. It just has one line for it. And the way they achieve that is through this solenoid bank. It's just like the newer style tractors now. If you get in them and they have the switch hydraulics instead of the pull levers, they run the same way. There's just basically a little electrode motor in here that pushes a valve open and shut, and that's how you can select from the monitor which option you want to do and work it off that one stick. That way you don't have to have 100 lines and all that mess. It just simplifies everything. And these are, it will throw you a code if one of these messes up, and it will tell you which one it is, and you just pop it off and go get another one and stick it on. It's pretty simplified to fix this baler. That's one thing I really like about this baler too, is it in the monitor and the control system, it will pretty well tell you what's wrong and what part it is and what you need to do to fix it. So, and that's one of the pluses to this thing. It's pretty simple. It looks complicated, but it's extremely simple. All the sensors pretty much are exactly the same, and if you have one sensor go bad in one area that's crucial versus another sensor that's not so crucial, you can move that sensor to another spot to get you through the day and finish baling. I believe also there's a way to set this thing so if your monitor inside fails, you don't even have to have a computer to run this thing, I think, or the monitor one. And you can set it up back here to where it will actually run manually without any of that, and trigger itself automatically to tie and everything. But you just have to watch your filler gauges like you used to do way back in the day. But the overall, the pickup, I really like it and how beefy it is, and the camless design. I love the tines on it. They're real long, they clean the field good. The augers are really good about merging the crop over. It eats hay extremely well. You can hit a windrow as fast as you want. I've not been able to hit one yet and stop the baler up starting out a bale. And I've run into them 9-10 mile an hour at times just trying to see what it'd do, and it doesn't even phase it, and it'll just keep flowing. One complaint I do have is the roller wind guard. They need to make this thing the full width of the pickup. This little spacing right here causes hay collection in this area, even with the offset tines that they put in here to try to solve that. They need to straighten these fins out and then extend this roller wind guard over to fill the full gap. I think it's also part of why there's hay accumulation in this area, because it starts trying to ride up and it shoves right into there at times when you hit a windrow a little bit sideways or something, and then you get a little accumulation there. Greasability on these, it is very greasability. It's simple. I mean, obviously there's some areas you can't get to, and there's some things that's greasable on this baler, like your pull down rollers on the inside, that most balers you cannot grease. And I like that because that means longevity for me out in the field and less headaches and problems. The non-greasable ones that are in some of the balers, like the older one I have, you can't grease them, so over time as the baler gets older, the factory installed grease and stuff starts to dry out, and it's just, they wear out. So it's nice to be able to grease all the bearings on the baler. It does have grease lines run from a grease bank right here. I left the baler dirty so that way y'all can see the hay accumulation on this thing and how it accumulates. The grease banks right here, it's also got grease fittings in different areas that are easy to grab. The hardest grease fittings on this, which they couldn't run grease lines to them because of the way the baler moves, is which the tailgate's up, is the density cylinder up there, and it's got a roller on top that you climb up and grease in the very top of the baler, and the hinging point on the hinges on the tailgate, you have to get up top, but you just climb up the ladder right here and just step up there and you can grease them. It's not too bad. Being this is a knife cutter model, you do have to climb underneath it sometimes and grease the knife tray, but that's pretty well on any of the balers. There's not a lot you can do about it. A lot of the problems with that is because the movement of the baler, you can't put grease lines on them. But just about everything though has a grease line on it, except for a few odds and ends that can't, and those are typically, other than really the one roller in the top and the 2 hinges. Even the density cylinder isn't bad. You can get to those pretty easy. The rollers line up when you pull the belt release back to that little hook right there at the end of my finger. You pull this cable back to there, and then you let the tailgate down halfway or pretty much closed, and those rollers line up perfectly with these holes right here where your grease stickers are, and you can grease each end on both sides of the baler on the rollers. So I really like that. That was a key selling point to me. Now what I don't like is these springs. I'm gonna go over probably the biggest thing I have a problem with this baler, now that I've ran it for a long time and that they need to change, is these springs. They have the only core density you get up till 38 inches on the bale is through these springs. After the 38 inches, your hydraulics kick in and run off this cylinder. It's at the top up here. And the problem with that is that I've found, and a lot of people contributed this as a net problem, which it is that I have a video, and I'm gonna try to insert it here if I can find it, of this baler actually doing it, and you can see that the round roll, if you look closely, when it's starting to try to start the bale, isn't spinning. So if you're in a thin, stemmy crop that is not got a lot of hay or mass to the windrows, it will not get the bale going and turning. And what that causes is it shoots hay right through here, back up into your net area right in here, and it prevents the net from starting at times. Now, in a day where you're baling all day long, most of the time this thing won't do it, maybe once, twice, if you're in those crop conditions. Now, in mediocre hay, non-stemmy crop hay, thick hay, any other kind of conditions, wet hay, whatever, it doesn't do this. It's only in your thin, stemmy, dry crop, which this baler here, this particular one, was a wet hay baler. Everything about it's designed to bale wet hay. And that's it wasn't really designed, because over in Europe that's mostly what they bale is wet hay. It wasn't really designed for dry. They have made some changes on the newer models to fix this, but my problem is it was throwing hay right up in here, and it'd ride right up into this area, and the net feeds, it has a pivot roller that pivots over, and it throws the net right over that roller right there, and it keeps it from tying. You see there's a little bit of accumulation there of hay, but that's really not the problem. The problem is when those belts don't start the roll and get it turning, and that's because they don't have any core density. The belts will start to walk a little bit when if you don't get enough hay in there quick enough to get the bale going, and that's when all those problems start. And they need to do away with the springs and put hydraulic cylinders in their place. And another thing that benefits having that is fuel economy, or just different baling conditions. You may want a tighter core than the outside. I have done that before. You may want a looser core sometimes than the outside, which they have that feature in this baler. They have a soft core feature, and you can adjust the size of the center core through that, but you can't really tighten it up if you want to. That's one disadvantage to this baler versus my old one that I really liked, because there was times when I was on hilly ground I could adjust that around from the core to the outside, still make a really good bale, but save power and fuel going across some of this rougher ground that we have going up and down these hills. And it would help, especially with a tractor that's not let's just say honestly it's not really rated for what this baler is. It really needs, I need about another 10-15 horse for this tractor or baler. If you are going to run knives and run this baler at full function in hilly ground, I'm going to say you're going to need 115 horse at the PTO, kind of around in there, in hilly ground conditions. Now you can run it with less tractor. I do it in hilly ground conditions, but given that, you're going to have to slow down, gear down on hills, and do a few things a little different, like you probably know some of you may have done before in the past with other balers. But it will run it. It may be hard on it, but it'll run it. But that's the biggest problem I have with it, and a lot of that is because of it has two roller, it's a double or three roller design baler. It has steel rollers in here too. It allows the core to be larger, and I think the shape of this has a lot to do with it. I kind of wonder if they played with design and took one of those out, if it would help, but I don't know. That's for AGCO's engineers and whatnot to figure out and to work on. But that's the problem I've had with the net system. And again, it's only in that stemmy, thin, dry crop is the only place I've had an issue with. Other than that, this thing bales like you would not believe all the time, perfectly. It bales a really beautiful bale of hay. Everything in this thing's heavy. I can't say enough about how much I like it. Let's see, something else I wanted to talk about was, while I'm here, is the chains. I love how big and beefy the chains are on this baler. You can see, I think these are 80, aren't they? If I can get these are two Sabaki RS 20B chain is what that is. I think that's, I can't remember what exactly chain size that is. It's a large chain, a really big chain that drives everything, large sprockets. And I haven't had any trouble with this style chain on the side. No problems there. All that's worked great. It has the ability to hold 3 rolls of net. You can put one here, one in the trough right here to tip over, and then into the net. And I'll go over the net system too. Now we're here. This is one of the main reasons I bought the baler too, was the net system. It looks complicated, but it's extremely simple. Really it is. I love the suspended net system. The trough designs like the McHale has, the Klaus has, and some of the other balers, the problem you run into with that is the restriction of it sitting in that trough trying to get some of this thinner net that ain't made as quite as good as some of the other brands. If you do get a hold of that, tearing and different things, and then you'll have a little bit of feed trouble. But with this, you can run pretty much any kind of net you want in it, and it gives no trouble because you can set your resistance to what it needs to be at. And it's easy to load. I've never had a problem loading this net, starting it, no matter what size of roll it is. It works perfect unless that hay, like I said, blocks it right down in there. Other than that, it works really good. I'll get down there and show you. Right here, tear a hole in my net, is the swing bar that, or knife that cuts it. You got to keep this chaff that's right here, again it's on here so I can show you this, keep that blowed off. If you let it sit out or it does get wet and crusty right in there, and it will throw off the actual weight I found of that knife, and it will not allow it to cut sometimes. So you keep that all cleaned out and blowed off right on top of that knife, and you shouldn't have any problems in these springs that pull it down. I always blow this net box out, even if I don't blow the rest of the baler out, every time I go to the field if I'm leaving home, and that prevents me from having any issues. It does have some sensors and stuff in here that tells it when to cut and different things. and if they get blocked or get a lot of buildup on them, it can cause it to not want to start right. But as long as you keep all that blowed out, I mean, it's perfect. That's by far my favorite net system I've ever had on a baler, period. I just love it. I haven't, and going from the issues I had with my old one, that was the main thing for me, was that I do not like a rear load net system because I don't like the strips that run along these belts down here. It will actually, over time, will cause the net to tear easier than if you don't have the strips on here. And that's why I don't like a rear load net system, because I hate torn net when they go on the bales. Right here is the pivoting roller. You can't see it. You might be able to see it moving right in there if I clean some of this hay out. You can see it right there. You see that? This whole roller swings forward and the net, it drapes over the top of it, and then that's when it comes through that slit I was showing y'all right here. It will actually pivot forward and feed that net right between the steel roller and belt. Works really good. And it runs off of this little hydraulic cylinder right here, and this belt turns it, and that's what activates it. It'll run for like every how many seconds you want it to run, in the cab, all that's adjustable depending on your conditions and how much startup time and you want it to help feed in there. It'll run, and that's how that thing gets the net over into the other rollers, because there is a gap there. Now it retracts when you're not baling to allow chaff to drop down through and out of the baler to keep it from building up in there. Works really good. I really like the net system design. They just need to get something done with the startup of the bale when it starts, and I think that is, like I said, in these, if they need to do away with it. Has a tier system for the density too. I like PSI better because I can fine tune it a little bit more, again, for fuel economy, and get the bales a little close but to what I want them at, but then still not too tight, to where I can get the best fuel economy. And that it does make a difference when you're pulling these. So I like the PSI system instead of the tier system. This one goes up to 10 on the density, and that allows you, I wish they would implement that to the regular density on the baler and then add another cylinder here instead of this, so that way you could adjust your core pressure too. And I think that would help. Another thing I think that would really help this baler, it struggles a little bit in thin hay. I don't know why, but it does. A lot of it I think is because of those springs, but I think if they sped up the actual belt speed, my old baler had a lot faster belt speed than this one, which this one is more, which the old baler I have is actually odd compared to every other baler we've ever owned, and it's still on the market. It turns a lot faster inside RPMs than any of the others, and one of the biggest benefit to that is it's just like a square baler. If you've ever worked on a square baler before and you know how they work, the more strokes you get out of a square baler, the faster it'll eat hay, and the tighter and more nicer the flakes will be at higher speeds running the baler. Well, it's no different than a round baler in revolutions. The faster that bale turns, the thinner that hay layer is going in to form that bale, and it makes a nicer core and denser baler. That's another thing I think they need to do. I think they need to speed up the actual belt speed, and I think that's an industry thing. That's one thing that the other baler that we used to, or that we have still, but used to be my primary baler, has a huge advantage over the rest of the industry, is actual belt rotation speed, for the rate it turns the bales. I don't know what the deal is, why nobody else has caught on to that or have tried it, but that's one thing I think that they need to change on these, is that. Outside of that, I mean, there's nothing to complain about. It's heavy built, thick steel. Things is built like a tank, it seems like. It bales good. I mean, it's quiet. I mean, it just does a really good job. The only other thing, which they have this as an option now, they didn't have it when I got it, and I can get them to go on it, but I'm a cheapskate like everybody else, and I don't want to have to buy them now until I break these or ruin them or whatever. They do have pivot wheels now as an option to go on the pickup heads, and I like pivot wheels. I do not like the fixed ones, and I'll tell you why. If you go across a field and it's got a little imperfection in it or something as you're turning, these wheels catch a lot of the pressure off the pickup head, and you either have to pick the pickup up, and this goes for any baler that has fixed wheels. You either have to pick up the pickup head, or it just drags, and sometimes on an inflatable tire you can get it in enough of a bind that it will actually pop these tires off the wheels or bend them. I haven't done it to this one yet, but I have seen them getting a lot of pressure on them. I don't like that. I like the pivot head style wheels on the pickups better. I think that they've went to that style now on these, because I think I brought it up to some of them, and I think they changed it after that. But I'm not 100% sure. I do know they have it as an option though if you want it. I really like those. If you're going to buy one of these, I would put those on as far as my preference. It's just easier on the frames, easier on the baler, tires, everything. Outside of that, that's about it. I love the large flotation tires, the heavy duty axle. The only downside of those is if you cut one, they are going to be expensive to repair. Those are the same tires that Heston or Massey Ferguson runs on their large square balers. Is their double axle large square balers is these. But boy, they are going to be expensive to replace if I cut one, and that's the only downside to using those. But I do like the way it floats across the field. They have wore really good. I've been on the road quite a bit with them. I mean, they don't show hardly any wear, and I like it, y'all. I mean, it's really done a good job for me so far. Like I said, I've yet to own a baler or use a baler that I have not seen something I wouldn't change. I've not seen that perfect baler yet, and I don't think I ever will. There's always something that I feel like you can improve on. But this one is a very good baler. I would not hold back on it and buying one at all. If there's something else that you have questions about I missed or something, leave in the comments. Maybe if it's something that needs more detail, I'll make another video on it, or I'll try to answer it through the comment section. But I've been needing to make this video for a while, and I've got enough hay through it now. I feel like I could give it an actual decent review. Still waiting to see over time how it's going to hold up. It's got a decent amount of hay through it so far. I haven't seen hardly really any signs of wear on anything, and it's really done good. Honestly, it seems like it does better the more hay I run through it. It seems like it's kind of like aging like wine so far. It's getting better with age as everything slicks up, and it just starts working smoother, and it's really baling some beautiful hay this year. Knock on wood. Let me find a tree over here. It may fail, it may give trouble, but I love it so far. It's done a really good job. I haven't got really any complaints other than the handful that I listed, but you're gonna run into that with any machine. Everything on this baler, I mean, if you haven't seen one of these before, everything on this baler is adjustable through the monitor in the cab. Now if you're watching this for the first time and you haven't seen this baler ever before, I mean, the detail that they've went in to make this thing good is really surprising. I mean, even the PTO shaft holder is heavy built. I mean, that's some thick steel for PTO shaft holder, and it just slides down that slot. The hitch, I love that style hitch. It's easy. You drop the pin in, put the plate over it, and you don't have to worry about it no more. The pin's short enough it don't catch no hay. Climb up here in the cab of my tractor, start this thing up. We'll look at the monitor for a minute. I mean, I went over all this in the original reasons why we bought this thing, but a lot of people haven't maybe hadn't seen that, and they've just come across this video and you want to see the monitor. This is their monitor right here. This monitor is ISOBUS. If you have, or the baler is ISOBUS compatible. If you have a tractor with ISOBUS, you can run it off your screen in your tractor and not even have this monitor. But if you don't, then you can use this monitor. It is touchscreen. I don't know for sure here in the US. I've seen it on the US website. I think it's coming if it ain't here. They do have a simpler, cheaper monitor that's slimmer. If you don't want to be out the expense for this style monitor, that you can get, that is an option now. Everything is touchscreen. Right here you've got your net, your knife number. I have no knives engaged. The floor. All right, sorry y'all, my camera shut off. But here's the monitor. Turn this tractor off. That way y'all can hear me a little better. Everything's cold. It's colder outside, and it's been a bin. Here's the monitor. Here's your bale size indicator. This baler goes up to 63-inch bale. Your bale fill indicators is right here. You can set all these info boxes to whatever info you want. You can change from bales to the hour to density. That's one thing I gotta get seen about on this baler, is the timer on this baler is off. For every 30 minutes it counts as an hour on the bale clock, so that thing's wrong. But you can do total bales on the baler, field bales. One thing I really like about this monitor is it stores your fields in here. You got up to 20 fields that you can flip through and look at far as your data and stuff that's in here, and you can store them in this monitor right here. Knife selection, you can go under knife selection, and this is where you can select how many knives you want to engage, 8, 9, or 17, or none. The none, it'll just drop them out of the way. And right here's how you adjust that. When I push this button, it'll stay on that, and that controls the pickup up and down. I can pick the pickup up and down from in here, and then if I want to drop the floor, I just push this, and then it switches this valve right here to, which is also the one I use for the pickup. It switches it to drop the floor, and that's what I was talking about earlier. And then if I want to put my knives in and exchange them as in or out, I can push this button right here. You can see it shows 17, because that's how many I've got selected right now. I can push the same lever and it will engage or drop out my knives if I want to. And then you have your manual start on your net, and this screen is touch screen, or you can use the buttons. Oops, I probably shouldn't have pushed that. But you can use the buttons and flip through instead of using the touch screen. I prefer the touch screen. Here's your bale size, your soft core. You can turn it on. See, I had it off. You can turn it off. Your hay crop type, you can go from straw, hay to silage. And it will, I'll show you, it will go up to 63 inches, and that is the biggest bale it will bale. And then your density will go up to 10 right there. You can turn it all the way up to 10. That's how you adjust it from the cab. Everything is controllable from in here. There's nothing I can't change on that baler from in here. Everything, even if I wanted to go from twine to net, if I had twine on this baler, I do not. It is adjustable from in here. I think that is under advanced baler setup, maybe. No, here's all the full alert. You can for your baler, if you want a warning to go off before the final buzzer to let you know it's nearly getting full, you can adjust that to ever how many inches you want. I've got it set at 5. And here's your soft core. Stop at, you can go from 0 all the way up to, I think it's 100% if you want it to build ever how big you want your core to be soft, if you're wanting to bale a soft core bale. Net delay and net clutch time, that's your net settings for this. It's honestly built to where if you have a cheaper net, you can adjust those to work better with your net. So the net clutch time will be how long that rubber roller turns the net to get it to start the net. Your net roller delay will determine how fast or how quick the actual feed roller that I was showing y'all that pivot starts to feed it in. And all that is settable. Net delay, I've got mine set at 1/2 second. You can go less than that, I think. Yep, it'll go all the way down to 0. So as soon as the buzzer starts, it'll start. And it's just kind of how quick it's stopping you are. Let's see, it's tuning. No, it's not under that. Advanced baler setup. No, that was calibration. You can calibrate your bale size to what actual size the bale is. So if you're like mine is actually makes the bale 1 inch bigger than it says. So I've got it set at -1 to get the actual bale size right. You can adjust that. Your bale shape right here, if it's leaning a little bit more versus what the graph says, you can adjust all that from here. There's no bolts or nuts to turn. You can do it all on the fly. It has a diagnostics menu. You can look at inputs for voltage for each sensor if you need to, and outputs from those other sensors and stuff. All right here. It'll give you an error history. Right here, I don't know why that tailgate closed one's there. Because it closed, I may need to adjust the sensor a little bit on it. But most of these are net start and stop. That's where you run out of net and it'll tell you that you have an error or whatever. Here's the info boxes I was talking about. You can change all these around, field hours, all that stuff, field bales, and customize these little info boxes to whatever you want them to be. Mine's in inches. It can go to metric, English, and different language. It has all these different languages that you can set this thing to be in and different stuff. But yeah, that's pretty well the baler. To show you the knife selection, I can go to 9 and I'll go back. You can go back here. If you look right there, right here, it says 9. So now it'll engage 9 knives instead of all 17. And if you're wondering what my thoughts are on that, my personal thoughts on the knife situation, if you're running a TMR mixer, I think all 17 are needed. But the rest of the time you don't need all 17. If you're actually feeding this directly to animals and you're wanting to use knives, 8 or 9 at about a 4-inch or whatever spacing it is slices actually performs just as good as all 17. You burn less fuel. Then you have the neat thing about this is I can take and I can run 9 for ever how many bales till my knives are dull, and then I can swap it to 8 and engage the other 8 knives, drop those 9 out of the way, and then I can run it ever how long I want with the 8 until they're dull. So I can really get two knife cycles out of one sharpening by doing that, and it gives you the ability to do that. And again, I don't have to manually remove any of those. Now, here's one thing I did not go over. Let me turn this monitor off. In this baler, is it actually comes with blanks. If you don't want to run knives, you can put the blanks in and not even have them in there, because the tips do stick up a little bit even when they're dropped out of the way, about that much, and it can wear the tips a little bit on the knives. But it has these blanks that you put into the knife box instead, and those stay in there instead of the knives. You put your knives back in the knife tray here if you don't want any knives in it, which a lot of the times I run those instead of the knives. But right now I've got some Johnson grass I'm gonna go cut. It's the only way we can get them to eat it at all, and even try to eat it, is to cut it and chop it. Otherwise they won't eat the stuff. It's just too, unless you cut it when it's only a foot tall, and if you do that, you got to cut it 10 times just to get it produce any amount of hay, and you might as well just round up the stuff and put something else in there. It's better. And then you've got all the extra fuel, and don't even get me started on Johnson grass. But that's about it on it. That's the monitor. Like I said, everything is changeable from the cap. So that's the RB 4160V Massey Ferguson baler review. But that's it for the review. Thank y'all for watching. If you have any more questions, like I said, put them in the comments. If you haven't got a dealer and you're curious about these a little more in price wise, call Kane Equipment. Right there's their info. Make sure y'all can see that. 770-983-3608. They're good friends of ours. They do a really good job. It's a family-owned dealership ran by the family, and they're really good people. So if y'all got any further questions that maybe you need to ask a dealer, contact them. I'm not a dealer. I'm not trying to sell these. I'm just a farmer. They're good friends of ours, and I just try to help them out, and they do a really good job. Really good job. So if y'all want any more questions, just contact them. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.